Webinar on DIY PR. My name is Aubrey, and I'm joining you today from the Weaving Influence headquarters in Lambertville, Michigan. And I am joined today by Whitney, who is in Knoxville, Tennessee. Hi, Whitney.
Hello.
So Whitney is our public relations strategist here at Weaving Influence. She started her career in communications as a TV news anchor and reporter in Virginia and Tennessee before switching to public relations. She enjoys spending time with her family in Knoxville, Tennessee, and running semi-competitively. And before we begin, I just want to share a couple of technical considerations with everyone today. We are going to be recording today's event and sending out a follow-up email, which will contain the slides, a link to the recording, and some special offers for you. If you stay here till the end, you will get those as well. And if you could also take a moment to find the questions panel within the GoToWebinar platform. Feel free anytime throughout the event to add your questions in there, and we will get to as many questions as we can at the very end. So with that, I will leave it to you, Whitney, and I will be back at the end to share some special offers.
All right. Thank you so much, Aubrey, and welcome everybody. We are glad you're here. So I figured I would start with the basics, which is what is public relations? So PR is there's a lot of different ideas of what PR is, but it is a persuasion business. You're in the business of persuading other people to, outside of your usual sphere of influence, to buy into your idea, purchase your product, in this case, your book most likely, support your position, recognize your accomplishments, etc. And so, with that said, there have been a lot of different definitions of what PR really is, and the Public Relations Society of America, PRSA, which is the official body for PR, took in thousands of different definitions, and they came up with this official definition, which is public relations is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. So that sounds a lot like advertising. So what's the difference between PR and advertising? The big difference is money. Advertising, there's a saying that is, advertising is what you pay for, and publicity or PR is what you pray for. So advertising is paid media, PR is unpaid. Lots of times people talk about PR, they refer to it as earned media, so you earn your spot in the media. Whereas advertising, you purchase space, and because you earn your spot in the media, you're credible, and people are less skeptical of the idea or product, etc., that you're selling. So what PR comes down to is, what that means is that you're there to convince reporters, editors, hosts, whatever, to write or produce a positive story about you. So, and this will appear in the editorial section of a magazine, of a newspaper, TV station, website, podcast, whatever. So therefore, your story has more credibility because it's independently verified by a third party rather than just bought and paid for. So how has PR changed recently? Obviously, social media has changed a lot of our lives, and that includes public relations, because back in the day, PR was really just like a one-way flow of information. You know, the media would push out information, and there was no way to engage with their audiences, and organizations would push out information, and they wouldn't really care or hear from the people that they were pushing that information out to. But now with social media, we all have the power to engage, interact with these organizations, including the media. And that gives us all a lot of power, including the power to perform our own public relations. So now if a reporter writes a story, you're able to send them a message directly, letting them know what you think about that story, or add information, etc. You can do this via the various social media channels that you have. You can easily find their emails online. And so that's really, really powerful tool to put in your toolkit when you're deciding to pitch media. So what this all means with greater engagement is that you can connect directly with them, and that way you can do PR for yourself. So The main function of PR is media pitching. PR does a bunch, public relations professionals do a bunch of things. They set up events, they write press releases, they write speeches, etc. But really the main function is media pitching. So what does that mean? How do you pitch yourself? It's really important to remember that journalists, speakers, bloggers, other influencers in the media are not stenographers. So they're not going to take what you give them and just print it. Like we said earlier, it's earned media, so it has to be credible. It has to be verified by a third party, which is them. So with that in mind, you need to flip the script and think about, okay, what's in it for me and my audience? Why should this audience care about this message that I need to send them? So you need to answer the question, what is my story? Why should I care? And why should I care right now? Other questions to think about, which is what makes something newsworthy, is it new? What makes it unusual? Is there a human interest angle? Really think about what makes it different and what makes your story different, or the information that you're offering just really novel and unique. And then that's your angle, that's your hook, and that's what you really want to promote when you're pitching the media. So when you're pitching media, there's really two avenues that you can take, and that's it. One is you create a story or you follow a story. So with creating a story, it's important to remember that PR people, really what they are is they're good storytellers. So you have to think about your story and then boil it down to what really makes it unique and just stick to the nuts and bolts of that. So most of the time, the PR firms promote something that's fresh to the media, like a new book, for example, or new research, a new approach, a new idea. And they'll pitch that for coverage. You can also offer to write bylined articles or op-eds that's not necessarily about you, but maybe related to a controversial topic. You can also use social media to get your story out there, content marketing. You could even put together your own event, and it doesn't have to be expensive. You can do a book signing or a book giveaway and just send a media advisory out, letting people know the who, what, when, where of when this event is happening. So in addition to creating a story, like I said, the other way to pitch media is following a story. So if there's something really hot going on in the media, you can attach your perspective, your expertise to that event. For example, right now, of course, the Me Too campaign and all of the sexual harassment allegations that are happening in Hollywood and in the political realm, that would be something that, you know, if you happen to have expertise that's related to that you could ride. So basically, opportunity knocks and you answer, and you insert yourself as an expert with a different perspective or experience. And when you do that, it is very important to be available. The worst thing you can do is email the media and say, hey, I have this expertise to offer on this subject. And then they respond to you and they want to interview you, and you say, okay, I can get back to you in a week. If you do that, you need to be able to jump when the media asks you to. You need to be able to connect with them by phone, by Skype, even go to a news station to do a satellite uplink if that's how they want you to reach their audiences. It's also you can also pitch yourself on evergreen topics. Evergreen means that it's something that's happening in the news that will be important for a very long time. So if you have a particular perspective on President Trump and his behavior, or his, just his time in office, you can pitch yourself to the media as an expert with a bulleted list of, hey, these are certain things that I can talk about, and then the media will take that and they'll put it in their online Rolodexes. They have this system called ENPS, and so when they're looking, when something happens, bubbles up in the news, they'll have your information right there to come in and provide commentary. So we've had success with that with several of our clients when there's something happening in the news, and we'll pitch, and then weeks or months later we've had news organizations reach out to get authors on their news programs or in their outlets commenting on those timely events. So with that said, what is a media pitch? Aubrey, I think we might need to go a slide or two. There we go. Yes. Thank you. So a media pitch is not a press release. There's a difference. A press release is written so that the media can just take it and they can just publish it online as is. So it's kind of like an article in of itself. It's heavier, it has more information, whereas a media pitch, it's a personalized letter sent to media personnel, and it really just has a little juicy tidbits of information. The whole point of a media pitch is to catch his or her interest so that they want more, so that they want to do an interview or have you write an article. So it has all the important information, but not all the details. It's just think of it as a teaser. And as far as length goes, we shoot for 500 words or less. The media, they get tons and tons of emails, and they have super short attention spans, like most people today. And so they don't really have time to read more than that. Let's go ahead and look at the anatomy of a pitch, what it looks like. First, when you open, you want to show that you are familiar with the person's work. So typically you will say, hey, I read this article that you wrote, and I found this really interesting, and because of your interest in this topic, I thought you would want to know about my book or my product or whatever. So you have to draw a connection between their work and what you're pitching. It has to be relevant. And that connects to why they should care. And then you go straight into your news hook. That is the angle that you're pushing, what makes you new and different and fresh and just unique. And then following that, if what you're pitching has something to do with a relevant trend or something that's timely, it's important to segue into that to show that this is why you need to cover this now. And then because you have all the big important information up top, remember that inverted pyramid, then you can drill down a little bit further and give a little bit more detail. Sometimes that's in the form of a quote. Then we like to follow with a bulleted list of about 3 to 5 subjects that you can talk or write about. And then you share how to get in touch and offer to supply any more information should they have any questions, and sign off. And then we usually follow up with a boilerplate at the bottom that's your bio or company bio or etc. So we'll actually look in the next slide at what a pitch looks like. And this one's a little bit longer than what they typically are, but as you can see at the top, we reference an article that this person wrote about and showed that and we hyperlinked to it, and then we showed that we had actually read it, and because of this person's interest in gender and business, we thought they'd be interested in this book that's coming out that has to do with women in business and influence. And we put up top that these authors are New York Times bestselling authors to add credibility to the potential interview subjects. And then we give a brief description of the book and why it's different than all the other books out there. It does not try to fit a woman's body into a man's suit like a lot of the other books out there. We follow up with a little bit more information about the book and what makes it especially credible, the experience and research of the authors. Next slide, please. And then we have a list of potential subjects that the authors could speak or write about. And then we finish up with a call to action, email me with more information. And then at the very bottom, which isn't included in the slides, we have the about the authors, which are short bios. Each bio is about 3 to 5 sentences. This shows that we did our homework. It shows why it's relevant and gives some more information, and then it has a call to action with how to reach us. So now you know how to write, hopefully, a pitch. Just when you're writing one, just remember shorter is always better. Short and sweet is always good. So now you need to figure out, who do I send it to? It's pretty easy to find targets. Just think about who you like to follow. What writers do you like? What reporters? And connect with them online. Start following them on Twitter or Instagram, or friend them on Facebook. And that way you become more familiar with their work, so that you can reference that in the pitch. And then if you follow or if you tweet about it, or share or comment, that will get on their radar, so that when you pitch them, it's not out of the blue. You can connect with them on LinkedIn as well and pitch them that way. I would not do a share or a retweet or a comment more than once or twice a week, because you don't want to overdo it. And you can keep a spreadsheet of contacts. So you can pitch them over social media, and we've had clients be successful with that themselves, pitching. Or you can look up their emails. Usually they're online, at their news organization's website. Or if they're not there and you can't find them, you can always call the newsroom and ask. And keep a spreadsheet of all of these contacts, who they work for, what their position is, what topics they like to cover, when you reached out, what response you got, how often you followed up. I usually like to follow up, following a pitch 1 week after and then another week after, because sometimes, everybody gets lots of emails and they'll miss the first email. And it's when you pitch, don't do it on a Friday. Try to do it between the hours of maybe 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. because at most news organizations have their morning meeting around 8 or 9, and then their afternoon news cycle meeting around 2 p.m. So that way, if it's something that's especially pressing, they will be able to have that information and bring it into the news meeting when they're talking about what they're going to cover that day or that week. And if you're doing a mass send to several media, if, for example, it's a media advisory, like, hey, I have this book that's launching, or I'm doing a book signing, always make sure to blind copy everyone and then just send it to yourself, because you don't want them to know that you're sending it to 20 different media personnel or so forth. So there's really, the media databases that are out there that you can subscribe to, like Cision, that are very expensive. They're very useful, but you don't necessarily have to have them, because honestly, when we use that at Weaving Influence, we always do a double check through Google anyways, to make sure that the information's up to date, because a lot of times they'll have a pitching profile in there and that person isn't at that outlet anymore, or they've changed the topics that they cover. And so it's always good to do your due diligence and make sure that you check out where they actually are and what they're actually covering. So there are some free online lists out there for you. All you have to do is just Google the keywords. Are you looking for top tech bloggers? Are you looking for business leadership podcasts? It's a pretty sure deal that those lists are going to be out there. But again, then you need to go to each individual site to make sure that they're still functional. The podcast is still up and running, and it's the same host or whatever. So here are 3 lists that exist that might be helpful to you. One's of book reviewers. The next one is book review websites, And then in the following one is also book review website. So that's if you wanted to pitch your book to be reviewed by these people. So yeah, and again, make sure you verify that everything is still functional because there's lots of turnover in the media business. A couple other resources that I want to mention to you that are available that are not very expensive is HARO, which stands for Help a Reporter Out, and ProfNet, which is short for Professional Network. These are services where media who are working on a deadline will send out a query looking for an expert or someone with a certain experience for their story. And it'll have a deadline, and usually they're very specific. Here are these questions that we need answered, you know, give it to us in 200 words or less. And then you see the example on your screen. You know, this one is due by 11 o'clock Eastern time, November 11th. So they're great. We've had great success using HARO and ProfNet. I mean, we've gotten New York Times, AP, CNN. And really the key here is to be very specific. You answer their questions directly, be short and sweet, just like with your media pitching, and be fast, because these reporters, these writers, these editors, they're working on a deadline, and they will most likely use whoever they hear from first. It's not like it's not quality most of the time. They're just trying to get it done in time. And these services start at $19, depending on the package that you get. So they could be very, very helpful to you. So with that in mind, with PR, it's a lot of skill. It's being able to tell a good story and doing your research, but again, it's a lot about timing. It's who gets out there first, and a lot of it's luck. You know, I recently was able to get a story with the New York Times just because he happened to be working on a story at the time that I pitched him on the exact same topic. It just, you know, all the stars aligned, and it happened to work out in my favor. And, you know, I used to be a broadcast journalist, and when I was a reporter, you know, I went with who got back to me first because I had to, because time was of the essence. So it's just, you have to keep at it, and eventually things will work in your favor. So that is all that I have to say about PR. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, let me look here. Thank you for that, Whitney. Again, if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and insert that into the question panel, and we can answer any sorts of questions you have. Just looking here to see if we have any. Okay, we have one here. Are there specific ways we can utilize LinkedIn for do-it-yourself PR?
Yes. So I've used LinkedIn to pitch clients who have had a connection, or, you know, a close connection to a podcast host in particular, but any personal media personnel. And so when I would suggest you connect with them on LinkedIn, and then you can pitch them through LinkedIn just like you would an email. And I meant to say that email most often is the preferred avenue of pitching versus a phone call. Or if you prefer to email them, you reference that you're friends on LinkedIn. Or if you have someone, if you happen to hire a PR firm, they can use that too. That, you know, hey, you're connected on LinkedIn.
Thank you. Okay, when you're starting, how long does it take to get a PR program going?
You can start whenever. I mean, PR, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by PR program, but if you're talking about just media pitching, it's just a matter of putting together your pitch and then sending it and keeping track of who you send it to and how often you follow up and what sort of traction you're getting. And it may take a bit of time to get a win, but the more wins you have, it also that increases your likelihood of getting more wins down the line, because it gives you credibility that other media have covered you.
All right, which is more important, someone's expertise and credentials or their on-screen presence?
If you're pitching, I would say expertise and credentials. That gets you your foot in the door, but if you're pitching broadcasts and you have a horrible online presence, or you're just not a good speaker, then did you say, I'm sorry, Aubrey, did you say online presence or?
On-screen presence.
On-screen presence, and if you're not a good speaker, then broadcast is not going to want to work with you. But the credibility and the expertise gets your foot in the door. But then lots of times with, if you're doing something, say with CNN or local news, oftentimes they're going to do like a phoner with you to see how good you are at speaking. And if it doesn't go well, then they may not use you.
Okay. And that's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, and if you are pitching broadcasts and you do have a video or a link of you speaking, I like to use that to show, hey, I'm a very compelling interview. Here's an example. So right. You can use that in your pitching.
Let's see here. I think we have time for like one more question. What is the biggest single mistake new authors are likely to make on PR?
I would say being overly verbose in your pitching and not making it short and sweet, and just mass sending, here's a book that's coming out, and not at all making it personalized when you're pitching, and just writing all about yourself and not thinking about who it is that you're sending to and why they should care.
Thank you. So we're running out of time for questions, but one of the things that I did want to go over was that we have a new book marketing Facebook group that we're going to invite everybody to. We'll include the link in the follow-up email. And that's a great community where all sorts of different authors can come together and learn from each other and ask questions. And so that would be a great place to ask any additional questions that maybe we didn't get to. And you can learn from others there. And we have some of our experts in the group as well that will be there to answer questions. And then the other thing is that we have our DIY book marketing course called the Book Marketing Action Guide, and that is now available on weavinginfluencelab.com. And as a thank you for this webinar, we'll be sending a special offer in that follow-up email as well. So keep your eyes open for that. You won't want to miss the invite to the Facebook group or the special offer on the lab course. Like I said, any additional questions, just be sure to add that in the Facebook group, and we'll try to answer as best as we can. Thank you for your time today, Whitney. It was great having you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.